morning, Mets fans, and happy Monday. Welcome to Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and unfortunately, I'm not able to do what I was hoping to be able to do today and talk about the Mets sweeping the Phillies at home this weekend. I'm not even able to talk about a series victory. No, the Mets dropped the series, lose 2 out of 3 to the Phillies, and aren't able to pick up any ground in the wild card. I suppose the silver lining to that is that they remain 4 games back of the second wild card spot, so while they didn't gain any ground, they didn't lose any ground either. And of course, as we all know, this week, a pivotal 4-game set starts this evening with the Arizona Diamondbacks. I'm going to talk a little bit about the weekend series, some more Mickey Callaway blundering, and what lies ahead for the Mets as they make this improbable run toward a playoff bid. Wearing the Todd Frazier salt and pepper shirt this morning reminds me of how unfortunate it was that Todd Frazier struck out yesterday with the bases loaded in the bottom half of the 5th inning. Really, I think at that moment, it sort of crushed the Mets' chances to win the game on 2 fronts. It was not only an excellent scoring opportunity that was missed, which, you know, it happens, but the worst end of it was that Noah Syndergaard was pulled from the game. And yes, Noah did not have his great stuff. He was staked to a 3-0 lead after a first inning onslaught, back-to-back home runs by Wilson Ramos and Robinson Cano. And Noah couldn't let that lead and make that lead stand up, which sucks. Really sucks, because you know there was a game where he needed to be a stopper and he wasn't. He couldn't be. So, like I said, that really sucks. But what sucks more to me is Mickey Callaway's decision to pull Noah after 5. He was at 78 pitches. And I get that it was a scoring opportunity. I get that. But it's the 5th inning. You have 12 more outs after that inning. 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, right? 12 more outs after that inning to get to a Phillies bullpen, which was already tapped into because Gabe Kapler had already removed Vince Velasquez at that point. And yes, like I said, it was a scoring chance, but the biggest weakness on this team, hands down, no question about it, is the bullpen. No one can argue that point. And the idea with that is to accentuate the positives and try to hide the negatives. And instead of trying to hide the bullpen, Mickey doubles down on it and forces them to get 12 outs. And what ended up happening was the bullpen did what it tends to do. It blew up. Paul Sewald, awful. Sewald had a nice stretch there of like 1 or 2 games. Where you're like, hey, maybe Paulie figured it out now. No, he's another 4A arm that's just never going to cut it here. Sewald was bad. Avilan was bad. Mickey was bad for leaving Avilan in there to face batters he shouldn't have been facing. Even Justin Wilson got touched up yesterday, which it's gonna happen. No one has a 0.00 ERA. It's just the fact that it happens in a shitty spot where the Phillies were able to tack on runs, and all-world player against the Mets, Michael Franco. I don't know how he does it against the Mets, and seemingly only against the Mets, according to Phillies fans. Like, the dude just doesn't hit against any other team except the Mets. It's insane. The Mets should sign him and relegate him to AAA so that he can't play for the Phillies anymore when he's a free agent. But I digress. Just a bad bullpen game yesterday. And then the offense comes back and scratches back and claws back, and it goes exactly as I said it would go in my head at the time. Like, why are you taking him out of this game? The offense can score. This is the A team now. The full strength is here. The lineup is at 100% for the first time this season. You cannot ask your bullpen to protect the lead for 4 innings. You cannot. Not when your bullpen is the 2019 New York Mets bullpen. You're lucky if you can get them to protect the lead for 3 outs. And we've seen that happen time and time and time again. So, Mickey blunder yesterday, I just don't get it. And, the frustrating part for me is how inconsistent he is with pushing and pulling starters. And we talked about it a couple of weeks ago where he pulled Steven Matz in Atlanta after like 75 pitches or something like that. And then he pushes Syndergaard in that same series and pushes him too far. Does the same thing with DeGrom last week, pushing him to the 8th inning against the Nationals, which we're not going to talk about it. But, this is the sort of stuff that's like, make up your mind, dude. Are you going to push your starters or are you going to pull them? And he could have pulled Marcus Stroman the night before, and that was the point I was going to make. Saturday night, Stroman doesn't have his good stuff. Again, he has not had his good stuff since joining the Mets, and it's very frustrating. And it's exacerbated by the fact that Anthony Kay made his debut and was really good. Newsflash, people, Anthony Kay is not going to be a big-time ace pitcher in the major leagues. Lock it up. He doesn't throw hard. Yes, he's got some movement on his stuff, but give it some time for the book to be out on him, and he's going to be a 5th starter at best on a mid-level team. That's my projection for Anthony Kay. And I'm not disparaging him, but all of these idiots who are saying, boy, Anthony Kay could be doing right now so much better than Marcus Stroman and Jason Vargas. We should have kept Jason Vargas. Like, yeah, hindsight is 20/20, guys. We get it. You cannot evaluate things like that, and you certainly cannot blame the guys that make the trades for trades that look like they should work out. Right? Like the Diaz trade. I've said it a million times this year. Stop blaming Brody for Diaz sucking. It's not Brody's fault. Should he have made the trade? I don't know. It's a different question to debate. And as I've said a million times, you got to wait until the length of this thing is over. Same thing with this Anthony Kay, Marcus Stroman thing. We have Stroman under contract for the rest of this season and next. Let's see what he does for the Mets over the course of that time before we judge whether he's a complete failure and terrible. I get really frustrated by the what have you done for me now crowd that are just constantly on players when anything goes bad, to the point where, after the debacle last week, you had guys on Twitter telling people to kill themselves, telling Paul Sewald to kill himself. It's absurd. It's absurd. Look, we live and die by the team, I get it, but it's a game at the end of the day. And you had Brandon Nimmo's wife on Twitter telling people, like, what the hell is wrong with you? Stop telling people to kill themselves. Like, this is not normal behavior, and it's not. Just like this whole, what have you done for me lately stuff is not normal behavior. Let things mature, let things play out, and let's see what happens before we start calling these guys busts before they get a chance to do anything than make 5 starts. Back to what I was saying, though, about Mickey. I want him to be a little bit more consistent with his decision-making process. It's what I always say about umpires. Like, I can deal with an ump who has a shitty strike zone if he's consistent with it for the whole game. But, these umpires that will change their strike zone from inning to inning, that can't happen. And that can't happen with Mickey Callaway and his decisions to or not to pull his starting pitchers. You talk about riding the starters. Well, let's ride the horses, right? These are by far and away the best pitching options on the team. And if anybody's telling me that any one of those bullpen arms coming in fresh in the top of the 6th inning was a better option than Noah Syndergaard going back out there for the top of the 6th after pitching 5 innings on 78 pitches, anybody who's going to make that argument, good luck, because there are no statistics to back it up. Syndergaard was the right choice there. Guess what? He's not that much worse of a hitter than Todd Frazier. So as I said, the Mets dropped this weekend series with the Phillies. They're lucky they didn't get swept, honestly. The Friday night walk-off walk win, the 7th blown save from Edwin Diaz. By the way, doesn't it feel like he's blown like 26 saves this year? I don't know how he only has 7 blown saves, but he blows the save on Friday night, and I can't even get mad at him anymore, because you can see how frustrated he is by it and how almost perplexed by it he is. Like, he throws his hands up in the air like, seriously? And he didn't make a good pitch to Real Muto on Friday night. And there's no question about that. He did not make a good pitch. Real Muto put good wood on it, made good contact. That's what happens when you throw a straight fastball down the middle of the plate. It is what it is, you know. But at the end of the day, I'm no longer even mad at him. I just feel bad for him. I hate that he has to do this and try to fix himself in a pennant race, in a stretch run where the Mets are pushing, not a pennant race, we're pushing for a playoff spot in the bright spotlight of New York City, with reporters breathing down his neck after every game, with Twitter going batshit crazy after everything he does. It's got to be really rough for him. And again, like I said before, like, this is a human being, and this nonsense where people think that he sucks on purpose, I will never understand that. Like, I mean, same thing with the people that were on Todd Frazier earlier this year. Like, oh, Todd Frazier's terrible. He's only good now because J.D. Davis is showing some promise and Jed Lowry's coming back from the injured list, and that's the only reason that Cano is good now. Or, sorry, that Frazier is good now. And I'm thinking, like, yeah, because, you know, Frazier would much rather suck and get booed all the time if he had any control over whether he was good or bad. Right? Like, it's just crazy to me. And the same thing goes for Diaz. Like, the guys that are saying, like, Diaz isn't putting in the work and isn't good enough and should be let go and should be sent to AAA. You know, he's a human being, and we got to remember that when we watch the team. Is it frustrating as hell? Absolutely, but it matters that they're wearing the jersey, and we got to stop being so friggin' awful to our own team and to our own players. So that was an unexpected tangent there, where I got into some, like, social policy stuff about not being mean to people. Kind of going back to Roadhouse, you know, like, be nice until it's time to not be nice. And when will I know when it's time to not be nice? You gotta wait for Dalton to tell you, I guess. So the Mets kick off a 4-game set this evening at home with the Arizona Diamondbacks, the team that they are directly behind in the Diamondbacks in the wild card race. So the Mets have DeGrom on the hill tonight, and you know that Jake was in the dugout like 7 runs. Really? You're going to score 7 runs today, and you're not going to score any for me tomorrow? And God, if that's the case again, you know, I think what DeGrom really needs, and what the team needs behind him, is a laugher with DeGrom on the mound. And yes, I know we could all look back at what happened last week in D.C. and say, well, it was a laugher then. That wasn't the same kind of laugher. That was only the way it only turned out the way it did because then Trey Turner forgot how many outs there were, and the Mets got on the Nats bullpen. I'm talking about like an early first, second, third inning rout where they put up 9 or 10 runs super early in the game, and Jake can just sort of pitch free and loose and not worry about being so meticulous and spot on, which he tends to always be anyway. But it would be really nice to see, I think, more so for the players, just to sort of get off the schneid and say, hey, we actually can score when he's pitching. That would be lovely. So that's what I'm looking forward to tonight. I'm sure that we're going to end up seeing a 1-0 Mets loss, but we'll see. These are all must-win games now. As Mickey's going to say, they're not, but they are. So starting tonight, the Mets must win, and we'll see if they can do that. I'll be back tomorrow to recap tonight's game with the Diamondbacks. Until then, you can follow me on Twitter at Mr_Met, MISTER_MET. Thank you for watching, and as always, let's go Mets.